Good day everyone. We will be discussing about the conflict mapping for Rwanda war, and it was done under the supervision of Dr. Omozuzi Mercy of Social Work Department, Babcock University. Let's get into the introduction. The Rwandan genocide was a horrific event that took place in 1994, during which members of the Hutu ethnic majority in the East Central African nation of Rwanda murdered as many as 800,000 people, mostly of the Tutsi minority.
The genocide was the culmination of decades of ethnic tension between the Hutu and Tutsi, which had been exacerbated by colonial policies and economic inequality. The Hutu and Tutsi are two distinct ethnic groups in Rwanda.
The Hutu make up about 85% of the population, while the Tutsi make up about 15%. The two groups have different histories and cultures. The Tutsi are traditionally pastoralists, while the Hutu are traditionally farmers. Rwanda was colonized by Germany in 1899 and then by Belgium in 1916.
The Belgians favoured the Tutsi minority, giving them preferential treatment in education and employment. This created resentment among the Hutu majority. Rwanda gained independence from Belgium in 1962. Let's get into the conflict mapping.
So right now we're going to go into the conflict mapping based on the fact that we already understand the reason why these two groups are fighting. First of all, we have the Hutu extremist leader. This is the majority group, while the Rwanda Patriotic Front, which comprise mostly of the Tutsis, were having a conflict. As you can see, this broken line here signifies that they both had conflicts going on. And you can see under here we have the international powers and colonial powers. Then these were the Germans, the people who colonized them, who were backing the Rwanda Patriotic Front. They were backing them under the guise that the Hutus were fighting the Rwandans. They committed genocide. They killed over 800,000 people. And we have the Interahamwe Militar. These were the group of people who were used to fight the Rwanda Patriotic Front, the Tutsis. And we also see on the top right hand here, which is the United Nations Security Council. And the United Nations Security Council, already at the top here, you can see it has a mutual relationship between both parties. That's why you have a single line here, drawn single line, while this double line represented an alliance between these two parties here, which is the Hutu extremist leader and the Interahamwe Militar having an alliance, the Rwanda Patriotic Front and the international powers or colonial powers having an alliance as well. So in this conflict map, you can see that a point of intervention will be coming from either here or from these both parties. Do you understand? So from the United Nations Security Council, the United Nations Security Council down here is a point of mediation. They acted as a mediator to solve the conflict between the Hutu extremist leader and the Rwanda Patriotic Front. So while they could solve this issue between them, solve the conflict between them, the United Nations could have also been able to talk to the Interahamwe Militar and the international powers to solve the conflict between the Hutu extremist leader and the Rwanda Patriotic Front. Because the Interahamwe Militar and the Hutu extremist leader already had a very strong alliance, a strong bond, while the international powers and the Rwanda Patriotic Front had a very strong bond between each other. So this Interahamwe Militar and international powers could also come as a point of mediator to mediate between the Hutu extremist leader and the Rwanda Patriotic Front, so that they'll be able to solve the conflict and also know what both parties want in resolving this conflict. Then we also come all the way down here. We have the outside forces. These are the forces that played a role in either increasing or reducing the conflict between these two parties. These outside forces played a role in the conflict that both parties had. We had the ethnic division, we had the media propaganda, we had the neighboring countries, and we also have political control. All these outside forces, most especially the ethnic division, because these two parties, the Hutu extremist leader and the Rwanda Patriotic Front, already have a very bad relationship, being the fact that the Hutu extremists, they were the majority group, but they weren't really recognized, they weren't really being favored. So they felt like they were being lesser than to the Tutsis, when the Tutsis were a minority group and they were smaller in size to the Hutu extremists, the Hutus. So we also have the media. The media was backing the Tutsis at that time, and they brought in so much, they played a very large role, either negatively or positively, in solving these two the conflict between these two, or either adding to the conflict, because the media could say something and that wouldn't be what the Rwanda Patriotic Front meant, but it will be carried over to the Hutu extremist leader, and or the Hutus will be thinking about something or saying something, and it won't mean what they actually meant, and it will be carried over down to the Rwanda Patriotic Front. So it actually added negatively and positively to the conflict. So I would say, as social workers, we had a role to play due to the fact that this is already a conflict that has already been solved a very, very long time ago. So the roles we had to play as social workers here, we set a discussion time where it was going to be reasonable for both parties, which are the Hutu extremist leader and the Rwanda Patriotic Front, a very good convenient time that will be good for them, for both parties, to be able to sit and talk, and including the United Nations Security Council, to be able to talk to the Hutu extremist leader and Rwanda Patriotic Front, to be able to solve their issues. We also played a role in inviting third parties, which are, in this map we can see the third parties will be the Interahamwe Militar, the international powers, calling the Interahamwe Militar to cease fire, and the international powers or colonial powers to be able to reason with the Rwanda Patriotic Front. Then we also played a role in figuring out the main issues. What were the main issues that these two parties had, the Hutu extremist leader and the Rwanda Patriotic Front? What were the main issues? And on this ground now, the main issue that they had was the fact that the Tutsis were being favored, which is the people under the Rwanda Patriotic Front. They were being favored more than the Hutus, and during that situation, there was a point where the Hutu brought in a president and he was killed, but like nothing was done about it. So they decided to take power into their own hands to fight the Tutsis. So that's figuring out the main issue. What was the main issue? What caused all this? What brought about the fight? We as social workers had to know why this conflict was ongoing and why it wasn't being solved. Establishing common goals. What do these two people want, and how are they going to establish that goal? So those are the roles that social workers play. In conclusion, as social workers, this conflict mapping would help us to be able to know what are the major people who play parts in our decision making, how can help people who have conflicts with each other to solve their problems, who are the people that can talk to these people in able to negotiate or mediate their conflicts. So social workers, we use conflict mapping to understand the basis of a conflict and how we can transform a conflict or solve it. So conflict transformation, we all know, is like changing the mindset of a particular conflict from one point to another, while conflict resolution is definitely just seeking the resolve of a conflict without really necessarily meaning that there will be positive relationship between both parties after the conflict has been solved. So thank you very much for